Hey, it's Ross Baden with Role Playing Public Radio. This is RPPR episode 143, Murder, She Wrote, My Scenario. This is going to be about the genre of small town mysteries. Everything from Murder, She Wrote to Gravity Falls to Twin Peaks to even JoJo, Diamond is Unbreakable. But I'm just mentioning it. All right, we're going to move it on.
Boo! Yeah. The podcast levels drop.
Or Riverdale. It's a rich genre, and I'm thinking about running a sort of mini campaign in Bubblegum Shoot at some point. So I haven't finalized anything. So we talked to Shaun here and Caleb to get ideas and sort of figure out the structure, what's appealing about it, and what kind of pitfalls to avoid, and our appreciation of the genre. Anyways, first off, we have a bit of news. I have a new book bundle for if you are missing my books, my print books. I've put Zombies of the World, Base Raiders Boiling Point, and Base Raiders from the Underground all together in one bundle. You can get all three for $30, free U.S. shipping. So if you haven't gotten all three of those books, here's your chance to get it.
Deals!
Yeah, it's a sale. So I'll put a link in the show notes. And then also, I will be in Seattle next month for Go Play Northwest, which is a small tabletop RPG con. Jeff Barber is also supposed to attend. I'm also up in Seattle to record some podcasts with Scott Clancy.
He's a friend of the podcast. I think he's Jeffy B now.
Jeffy B. All right. I'm sure
That's how he wants his friends to call him.
Yeah, so. Jeffy B. Or JB.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what I will be running. Probably Base Raiders and or Red Markets. But I don't have my schedule yet because
should run Red Markets.
Maybe I'll run both. I'll have schedules up on the Facebook group for RPPR and Twitter and other social media when I figure out what games I'm running and when. But yeah, if you're up in the Seattle area, come down. I'll be there Friday and Saturday, the 7th and the 8th. That Sunday, I know the con's still going on, but I'm going to go hiking around Mount Rainier because nature, it's a thing that exists. And I should go
for now.
So enjoy it while you can. Also, Cascadia earthquake is going to happen at some point. So I want to see what I can at the Pacific Northwest before it is swallowed by the ocean.
Yes.
So, anyways, that's it for news. And so let's get talking about the main topic, which is about small town mysteries. I've had the idea of doing one because I've always been interested in the idea of reusing the same place and the same characters over and over again, because that's sort of central to the small town mystery. It's and I guess we should start by defining it. And why don't we all just go around and define what we think the small town mystery, how you would define it. So, Shaun, why don't you go first? How would you define
hell? No. So basically, the genre is more just. Try to find a good, concise way to phrase this, but I'll probably just throw something down there and you guys can sharpen it.
Keep in mind, we have not looked up TV tropes at all, so this is original research.
Yeah, this is like
the academic source of TV tropes.
So, there's something about there's the actual mystery shows where they showcase a small town that they keep going around revisiting familiar characters. There's always a deeper history that builds up the actual mystery because they have to somehow go further into it. So a murder happens or somebody vanishes. And you have to figure out, why did this happen? And somehow this leads to you researching decades back in the past, centuries perhaps.
Sometimes. Sometimes it could be more recent.
It's more recent, but...
one we haven't mentioned during the production was Stranger Things. That's another excellent example.
I mean, but basically, somehow the town's history typically will play into it, recent or further back.
Yeah.
A lot of times, usually it'll have a lot to do with the petty politicking that small towns have in real life. It plays off of that pretty strongly. How in a major city, I'm trying to think of a good random old lady name. Susie, Aunt Susie can normally not wield real power in New York City.
Right.
But here in our pissant little town, this woman is like a real player behind the scenes.
Right, yeah. She's not the, a random citizen who's not like a...
Yeah, the characters in Law & Order SVU never consult Aunt Susie about the rape kit.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas in a small-town mystery, that's a thing that happens.
Yes.
That's
because those are your resources. Like, and Bubblegum Shoot kind of does that.
Yeah,
but anyways.
You can essentially make seemingly minor characters into, power players or, real political... Yeah. I'm trying to think of a better way to define that, really sharpen that down, but...
Well, while you're thinking about it, I mean, Caleb,
we can keep going.
what do you think? How would you define a small town mystery?
Well, surprise.
Yeah.
I'm going to be overly academic. So I see the small town mystery genre as a whole as deriving primarily from this sort of fusion of the broader literary tradition of regionalism or local color writing, if you want to go back to Mark Twain and the American tradition or things like that,
right?
Where context, where the acknowledgement of in a time and in a place supersedes all other elements of the literature. So for instance, Jim may be unintelligible in Huck Finn, but he sounds like Mark Twain assumed a black guy sounded like at the time, because the depiction of the time and the place supersedes all other elements of the plot, including realism. Because if you look at Huck Finn and another of our regionalist writers, it is again, even Hart Crane, it is more about depicting the ethos, the mindset of a place than it is about realism, or you get into Southern Gothic, that kind of stuff. I think it's a fusion of that with the more profit-driven, more, if you want to get into Adorno, the culture industry kind of stuff, of the, serialized mystery television show. It's sort of a bastardized fusion. And I don't say bastardized in that it's bad. I say bastardized in that it is a bit of a hybrid. It is a bit of a hybrid between this sort of impulse of people that are raised on that sort of regionalist writing tradition, 18th, 19th century writing, and then moving towards this more commercial adventure, mystery, murder of the week sort of things. And it's a fusion of that. So I think it's important to look at things like Law and Order. I didn't just make it was a crude joke. I didn't just make a crude joke about SVU, but Law and Order is not the small town mystery. It's the New York mystery, but it's the mystery that will occur every fucking week regardless of anything. Whereas you look at Murder, She Wrote, it is that same thing. The mystery is going to occur because we need a fucking show, or the mystery is going to occur because we need a book for 18th of Janet Ivanovich's books. And then it's going to happen because commercially it demands must happen. But we're also going to include some sort of, literally humanistic representation of people quality in it by, nailing it down in this very, lived experience, this very, place that has, recurring characters and a consistent geography. And we are going to, nail it down in this sort of literary tradition of regionalism. That's where I see the sort of, if small town mystery is its own genre. And I have not consulted TV Tropes, but if TV Tropes approves, I would posit that it's sort of this fusion of this sort of deeper literary tradition with this sort of new commercial mode of writing.
Mm-hmm. So it also kind of, I'm sorry, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, kind of bring it down a notch, I guess, probably. Setting his character is a vital part of this.
Yeah,
entire genre.
Exactly.
It's just the quick version.
Well, but setting his character is predominant. So, for example, we're never going to hang a lantern on the fact that Angela Lansbury has a murder rate dwarfing that of fucking Juarez.
Oh, she's
that's there's a
Somalia.
there's a random town in New England that makes towns like Syria in the middle of a civil war look fucking quaint with the number of deaths they have. We're never going to talk on that. We're going to talk about her recurring next door neighbor and her friends in the local theater group that suddenly there's a murder. And that's the thing. It's sort of this weird confusion of that. But that's the thing. Regionalism was never about realism. It was an outset of realism, but it was a very much the development of the idea of verisimilitude. It's there's no such thing as realism in fiction. There is the feeling of being real. And the idea in fiction is the feeling of being real comes from the feeling of the term that's being thrown around all the time today is world building, which I also kind of hate because there's terms that are 800 years old that aren't world building that say the exact same thing. But the idea that the sensation of being real is distinctly different from actual reality. And there are things that will get people closer to feeling real faster in writing than there will be in terms of actually perceiving real. Sometimes you just wake up late one day and you have a couple beers and you go over to a podcast and you go home and go to sleep. And it's not much of a fucking narrative and no one cares about it. It's real as hell, but nobody wants it. And so you're going for the perception of real and the idea that, like, the way you make murder have stakes, especially when it's a murder every fucking week and you don't know the person who died. The way you give it stakes and the death weight and the importance of the iconic hero doing that is by making that murder an event in a community. And the community is a story that you're invested in. You're not invested in whatever asshole that got fucking murdered that week. You're invested in, like, oh, how does Shrewsbury, how does Miss Marple, how does whatever fucking town Angela Lansbury lives in go on from this? Like, you're invested in that sort of maintenance of the civil order, and that's the sort of that's the stakes in the scenario.
So, Caleb, you just helped me invent a second headcanon for Murder, She Wrote. My original was that Lansbury is the mastermind behind all of these murders. She is the architect. She has the murders conducted so she can keep writing stories.
She's the avatar of the Black Widow.
Yes. Now I've got a better headcanon. Just like I just want to see a single picture painted of Lansbury sitting in a bar, just staring with those dead eyes, with a glass of brandy or something.
It's her and Detective Stabler. Yes. They get together in their high school reunion.
Yes.
Just talk about their cases.
Just a mental image.
Drink Boilermakers.
I think I did read on Tumblr a headcanon post about Murder, She Wrote, where it's like she is literally the avatar of death. And that's why so many people keep dying around her, is that, like, she is unwillingly killing everyone around her through her psychic.
And I mean, like, it's a fucking advanced, like, reducto ad absurdum example when we talk about Murder, She Wrote. But I really think that summarizes the genre. Like, you're taking this sort of this materialist demand of the market. We need a fucking story this week. We need a book this quarter. Whatever it fucking is. Gravity Falls. Something weird's got to happen. We got another fucking episode, or Disney's going to cancel us, and they cancel us anyway. You've got.
Well, they had a resolution at least.
Yeah. They at least got a resolution. You have this sort of materialist demand. Something has to go wrong at this time, regardless of whatever. So this sort of serialized, formulaic stuff. But you also have to make it seem not fucking. Somebody died. Who gives a shit? Someone dies every fucking week. You have to, like, have some stakes to it. And so you sort of have these recurring characters. Yeah. I guess if I want to do another pop culture example, you could look at, like, the fucking Gilmore Girls, which is the opposite of that. Like, we will just talk about this bizarre town, and this bizarre town won't exist anywhere in reality, because Stars Hollow is like the utopian white nightmare that Portland was founded on, if it actually worked. But that we won't have a murder or anything actually happen to do it. We will just continue being invested in these characters in this fully realized but very limited space. So you can do that. And I think, like, it's very much the idea of, like, all right, if Gilmore Girls works, if I will watch these girls who speak like no one in reality has ever spoken and live in this world that is totally divorced from actual reality, but it's just fully realized and these interactions are consistent and, like, across the page, if I will watch them just talk about fucking nothing for 2 hours and, like, Netflix will revive it for another interminable term, why can't I just throw a mystery in there and have that carry along my murder of the week? Like, that's what I kind of see the whole genre as.
Okay, yeah.
So, I mean, judging from both of your descriptions, so we can see some elements are important, like history and place are very important, and then, like, the community. It's, for me, you're kind of saying, like, the community in conflict or in crisis is the conflict.
Restoring the community to status quo.
Or some sort of new
is
order.
The arc. Restore. It's iconic, and that's why it's perfect for a lot of gaming groups, because you know what is very much along the same model. On a serial model, right, while you're not making money, Wednesday's game night, you need a game. Like, something's got to go wrong, and you got to have heroes go solve that fucking thing. And it doesn't matter what's going on else in the plot line. Something's got to, like, get you all together and scheduled and working on it. And so my idea is, like, that's why it works so well in an RPG framework, is because you are doing these continual lasting character arcs. You are doing these like continual world building, if you want to use that term.
Right.
You have these in-jokes that you're building with your friends. You're collaboratively making a narrative, but you're also sort of paying lip service to the logistical realities of playing an RPG, which is like, we all got to get fucking babysitters, and we all got to get off work, and we all got to like buy food, and we got to arrive in the same place at the same fucking time. We got to talk about the same thing for 4 hours, and we have to fucking deal with that. And it's sort of like, that's why I think it's a genre that so well works with the RPG, and why my default is like the mystery framework, even though I don't read that very much, just because it really works well for the theater of RPGs.
Yeah.
You got to get together. There has to be a reason to get together, and something has to happen stakes wise for it to be worthy of
And you
your
want to see it
attention.
continue, yeah.
But you also want to see it continue on to the next thing, and you don't want lulls in that. So you sort of make this this narrative of this place and your characters within it, whereas at the same time, someone's gonna fucking die.
Yeah.
And you gotta solve a mystery about that. So
Well, I mean, in part, I agree with you, but the default thing with the RPG is more akin to an Odyssey or a road trip, because it's a lot easier as a GM, correct me if I'm wrong, but to make up a new thing every week rather than to take existing elements you've already established and rework them to be just as interesting the second time around. And you can't do that with a small town mystery, because you can't you can introduce new murder victims, or you can introduce new crises or whatever you want to call it, for the town to solve for order to be so. But you can keep introducing new villains or you have to reuse, like, it's the same population,
So
and
you have
same
to
set
create
location.
an arc for a lot of NPCs.
yeah, you need an arc in addition to the
And I
character
think
arc.
most RPGs don't do that. It's a dungeon of the week, or
yeah, and that's the thing.
Law and
like,
Order is the same. Like,
Conan's constantly moving from place to place, but like after the 18th time, he's like out constricted a constrictor snake god in whatever weird, bizarre land. You're just like, what the fuck does it matter? He's gonna find something. He's gonna kick its ass, and that's gonna be it. Like, he has no relationships with consistent NPCs, if you want to use a gamer metaphor, that change. And like, I don't think it's going to give you the best of both worlds, but it is, I think, that mystery like of the week in a small local setting that can be handled world building wise, and is not all of like I don't know, the Fertile Crescent or wherever the fuck Conan is set. A limited, Hyperborea. That limited space where you can have like a consistent arc across multiple characters, including the characters of their own. That's the thing. Because like, if your character's the only character that has an arc, that's great for a one-shot. But if your character is the only character that has an arc every fucking week, it feels like reality's catering to you, and you get this like sort of Truman Show thing. It's a harm on verisimilitude.
Yeah.
Whereas like, if you have the small town that reacts around you while things still continue going wrong, you have this sort of issue that moves the narrative forward.
Yeah. And I agree with all that, but I just don't think it's done as much.
I agree. I don't think it's done enough. I think a good thing in RPGs is that it's like becoming more prevalent.
Yeah. You certainly see that with games like not only Bubble Gumshoe, but also Tales from the Loop, and more in the past, like Candlewood Manor for Monsters Other Childish Things had like a relationship generator to where you had all these NPCs, but you could interpret the relationships unique to your campaign. So there were
Tales from the Loop is like, you can see it on every page of that book.
Yeah.
Like, even if you don't read the text, but like the inclusion of like combines next to mech walkers and like your shitty fucking Camry next to like an AI robot is explicitly meant to give you like, here's your literary shit, here's your commentary on the human condition, here's your fantastic shit that will actually get you to get a babysitter and show up to the table. And it's like in the visualization of it beyond even the text. Like, that's what you want in those small town murder mysteries. Relatable, but will get you out of bed.
Yeah. Shaun, have you run any of these kind of games before?
Well, there was Cottonwood, I guess.
Yeah, there was Cottonwood. Thank you for bringing that up. Cottonwood is an excellent example in terms of our own RPPR canon, because I think like most of our campaigns are more of the road trip kind of thing, like No Evil or Tribes of Tokyo. I mean, Tokyo was one city, obviously, but I didn't really have reoccurring NPCs as much. But Cottonwood, yeah. So part of that, of course, was based on your own observations of life in small town Texas.
Yeah.
And again, there's that element of realism, quote unquote. But go on.
Oh, there was a lot of exaggeration that got used to kind of make it more interesting. If I just went day-to-day life in a small town, the monotony would have been the main villain.
Yeah.
And it can murder.
That would be a different kind of game.
Yeah.
And that's a literary novel.
Yeah.
That's not something I get out of bed to go game.
No, I mean, if I try to run that for a table of 3 to 4 people, it's just not going to happen.
It would turn into an action thing because we'd set something on fire.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, until you set things on fire, phones will be out, that kind of shit. So obviously you have to get the murder mystery, and I had to make it as fucked up as possible. Actually, to throw out a few like small town kind of settings, I dug pretty deep into the Lynch bin on this one. I know not everybody likes Lynch, but I felt that Twin Peaks and Blue Velvet were great inspirations to kind of push things along.
Yeah. The Twin Peaks is certainly a big name in this category or genre.
Yeah. But honestly, again, a lot of the big thing was, again, to go back to the setting itself was a character, actually physically on some level as well. I kind of put it in sort of avatar.
And you can have that. Certainly Gravity Falls has that too.
Yeah, so...
does Twin Peaks? I don't know.
Sort of. Not. There's Bob.
There's Bob. Okay, yeah.
There's Bob. There's the Arm. There's the Star Giant. It gets really freaking weird.
Okay, so there are manifestations of the.
There are, but it's really again, it's just more Lynch taking the piss and trying to be just weird.
Being Lynch,
yeah. But no. Like in coming up with it, I didn't intend for it to go supernatural.
Okay.
It was not meant to be. Cottonwood Slim was actually just a dude.
Okay, so when did you make that change? Because spoiler alert, it was.
Whoops. If they're listening to this right now, they probably already listened to.
Spoiler, yeah.
What happened was I was sitting there in a break room, scribbling and like just trying to come up with names for different people, and the word wolf was on the paper, and for some weird reason, that's where the dog thing came up, and this whole mythology started like just descending upon it.
I think the wolf thing is important because it's small town mystery. Another characteristic is that it has to be a unique place, and so Cottonwood is a unique place because of those dogs and canines. I guess
the idea of the wild hunt personified in a Texas boomtown.
Yeah,
I loved Cottonwood. So here's the thing: Cottonwood, as the 1 or 2 shot it was, could have been just for me. This town is fucked up from like tip to toe, and it could have been just like regularly like that. However, I could have also seen Cottonwood like being stretched out to like campaign length because it was so fucked up. Like we could have just like as Texas Rangers walked through municipal departments and like dealt with how god awful they were, but that would be drudgery. That would be I am a Texas Ranger, this is my work. And that's the thing. Were there this like strange, like true detective arcane influence in the background of Cottonwood? That's a hook that gets me to the game table every night. And so like that's the sort of thing. Like it was thoroughly steeped in this local color that made it feel real, but there was enough to it to like make it a fantastic event.
It took okay, how's this? You guys got through you solidly touched on a quarter of the notes I had.
No, you wrote a campaign.
Yeah.
And then we did a speed run it. And I know I do that all the time.
I kind of prefer the way it wound up.
Yeah.
Because I like that there's more mystery.
Yeah.
So
also a Dirty World. I don't know. We've never really done a campaign of that. I don't know how well that would hold up. It's a great game, but I don't know how well it would hold up for extended campaign play.
Yeah, it's not been tested for long-term play.
Yeah.
So you'd need some different
if you would change it
mechanics, but that's like a game design kind of thing, not a narrative thing. And I think we're really talking about a narrative thing.
No, we are. But I mean, game design affects the narrative. I mean,
I agree.
Yeah, so because there are different systems you can run these things.
I meant narratively, like I could see a season of a TV show.
No, it could have been
of books set in Cottonwood. Yeah,
we can
where we like
Cottonwood.
Northern Explosion style come in as like the Texas Rangers who are like.
Yeah.
Not a nerd in this fucking nightmare of like top to bottom civic corruption and just like every day have to consult the alien like ethos of everyone that works in Cottonwood municipal like work. Like, yeah, I could see that being stretched out for a number of times. Yeah.
Well, Shaun has actually kind of already done that. At least with the Patreon game, he's used the Cottonwood setting for other one shots. Yeah, and has plans for more.
I did Rojo, and that came.
That was Slasher Flick.
Oh no, I did Slasher Flick. I also did Rojo, another Dirty World.
Okay,
that got really a bit fucking real. Sorry, but. Yeah, no. There's enough material from things I've seen over the past decade that I can keep expanding the setting and just
that's another option if you want to do the small town mystery is to take that setting and not make it one cohesive campaign, but like maybe a series of mini campaigns or a series of one shots or a campaign with some ancillary one shots and stuff like that. You can take sort of a broad sprawling approach.
I kind of feel like if you drag it out for too long, you have to come up with like micro rewards along the way.
Yeah.
To like resolve a bunch of little mysteries as opposed to the Who Killed Amanda Palmer arc, which frankly.
Twin Peaks.
Never resolved.
Not real. Well, they answer.
I thought they resolved it in Firewalk. I mean, at least you know who killed her.
They literally state precisely what happens between Firewalk with Me and Amanda Palmer's Diary.
Yeah,
but the payoff is never there in the actual show.
Yeah,
which I think is a big turnoff point for a lot of people.
Yeah,
you have to dig deep into the mythos to truly understand what's going on, and even then, you're basically told you will never truly get it.
Yeah, so. I guess when you're if you're a GM and if you're wanting to do a small town mystery, I think the main question is now that we understand the basics of it, of what makes a small town mystery, as opposed to like why it's Murder, She Wrote and not Law and Order. Law and Order, the only reoccurring characters are the principal investigators, and they don't revisit the same informant every week, and they don't do the same thing.
I mean, they do, but that's because they're recycling bit actors.
Yeah. They have different names.
This week I work a copy store.
Yeah.
8 episodes from now, I'm the head of a nunnery.
That's a great career transition. So yeah, when you're thinking about doing this, like how do you write it? Like how do you create? How did you start doing that? And then so let's start with that because like I have an idea for one, and getting with the history in place. I think one thing about the small town mystery is you kind of do need to set it in a very particular place, like. You don't have to make it a historical place, but you have to make it a very realized place. So that's why I think it's very easy to just set it. It's not set in the here and now. It's set in this particular place at this particular time period. Because then you can do research and, kind of like an Adam Scott Glancy thing, just do enough research and be like, here's what it was like back then. And here's, and it doesn't have to be like,
Yeah, you want to provide local color.
Yeah, you want to provide local color. You want to make it it's not generic place. It's not generic town. It's Cottonwood with its fucked up dogs and municipal government. So
much you guys didn't explore.
Yeah, exactly. And for example, I have an idea, and I was thinking about one that would be Japanese theme. I was thinking more like influenced by things like Japanese horror films, like The Ring, and a lot of those. And there's some obscure ones that are very usually set in small towns, and so they have their own kind of tradition doing this. So I was thinking doing one set in in the early '90s. The lost decade of Japan when they have this economic recession at a coastal town, and obviously students, and start with a greenhouse is on fire, and then these strange plants start growing around the town, these strange flowers, and kind of start with that. So the mystery is the initial setup would be investigating this fire, and so everyone's concerned about this fire, and maybe the adults are not giving a shit about the plants, but the kids are that's really fucking weird,
Yeah.
So, but that's just my idea. So, in terms of you, how would you structure writing it up? I mean, obviously, you could use Cottonwood as your experience, but yeah.
I was just going to say one thing I just have to qualify is I'm the only non-professional writer at the table, so I know that everything I sound is going to sound pedestrian as fuck.
Oh, don't worry about it.
But the way that I've looked at for any of the mystery scenarios I've written, it's really basic. But I know. But you figure out what happened.
Yeah.
You don't start with the mysteries and the hooks. You start with what really happened. And then you work backwards from there, building up the setting, and then you decide how do you draw them in.
Do you think David Lynch knows what happens in Twin Peaks?
No.
I think I think
categorically no.
Dude had a dream. I think I don't know. I'm actually going to watch the new seasons because,
Yeah,
I think David Lynch ran out of money, and lo and behold, another season of Twin Peaks came out.
But it was precisely 25 years later.
Yeah.
So that gum we light came back in style.
All right. So normally you would know the answers and work your way backwards. Which
Right,
is the
and you can change the answers later if it becomes more convenient. But
Okay.
again, I'm the person with no real professional.
Well, I mean, this is writing a game for your local group. We're not necessarily doing it for publications. And we all had a great time playing Cottonwood. So,
By professional writer, you mean self-published because no one else will publish me. Then yes.
Eclipse Phase does.
Eclipse Phase does. Thank you.
People give you money for words, okay?
Right.
That's like 5 steps above where I'm operating.
So, if we're talking about hard logistics of how you translate it at the table, I really see my transition in this being from No Soul Left Behind to Red Markets. So No Less Left Behind was a small town mystery, and then it's a small high school mystery.
Yeah, it's a small community.
You have these recurring characters, and I feel like that's good, and I don't feel like I did a bad job. But it can be exhausting as a GM to remember like the voices and the various like acting tics of all of these various characters, because you are providing local color as well as cues. Yeah. So what I did in Red Markets, which was a little bit more episodic, is the idea that the enclave is entirely player generated, and then you have this player generated enclave and their dependents are not necessarily played by the market. They're actually played by everyone else at the table. So I think if you want to talk about like hard logistics, how do I bring this to the table? When you like cast your small town, perhaps you should give cast members to specific players at the table who aren't going to interact with them. So, for example, the Jewish mother trope of Aaron's character, we kept recalling that and that kind of thing. But that's the thing. They don't necessarily have to provide plot-sensitive information. That could be something reserved for the GM. And you are in a mystery scenario. And so, like, even though the sort of trope of the mystery, the sort of like thing you have to get past in the mystery is that you obviously have characters who don't know anything, and then you obviously have characters who do. And you've all accepted that in playing a mystery. So why don't you just make the characters that know something to be the GM's role, and then everyone else to provide the local color, the verisimilitude. So one thing I would suggest as a GM advice is to sort of democratize this town. Like, give everyone 2 or 3 characters, and they don't have to like maintain a character sheet, but they know some basic tropes of them, and if they're talking to that person, they can be in different scenes, and that way, like, the whole Scooby gang doesn't have to be fucking together for every fucking scene, which again is a sort of a violation of the narrative genre you're working in, because splitting up is sort of vital to the clue gathering process.
Yeah, I mean, look at Stranger Things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you need to deal with different combinations of stuff like that. So, the one thing I learned in No Soul Left Behind is that it can be sort of exhausting to run this like entire cast by yourself against these PCs. And so like, but like the brilliance of the Better Angel mechanics is that I never had to play a demon. The demon was always the person to the left.
Yeah.
And so I sort of realized it's like, well, if it's just a subplot, if it's not like the main narrative through line, why can't David play that character too? Why couldn't Bill or Sarah play that character?
Yeah.
And I think that's what I realized between that and Red Markets. And that's the thing. Your small town doesn't have to feature. You can choose the realm in which it features. You can get a lot of verisimilitude from a very little amount of small town. So Red Markets being like based on contracts and stores is very much adventure of the week. But doing those vignettes, even like 3 or 5 minutes, if you're tight as a market, can really just like anchor everything in this time in this place and make it all feel real and make it have stakes. I'm thinking about Fallen Flag in that regard, like, we went out and did some crazy whackety schmackety do shit every fucking week, but it always had like this clear, demonstratable, and I think by the end of the campaign, heartbreaking impact on this like, this very tight knit group of people.
Yeah.
So, sort of democratizing who plays those roles and sort of establishing that you can get a lot out of very little of like just the local color, regionalistic. Small time, and I think that's why it's popular.
2 points I think I can see from that. One is you don't have to dive the entirely way into the genre. You could take that part. Like Red Markets is not a small town mystery per se. It has elements of it.
It's like at 30 minutes at most of small town mystery.
Yeah, and so you can take that part,
and you still get a lot out of it.
Another idea I did have is you could still, like, I love the idea of democratizing NPC creation for a small town, because that also invests the players in it. If everyone has like their 2-3 NPCs that they create, they're paying more attention to they're more invested and they care more about it. Especially, oh my God, the shopkeeper that I created is threatened by the monster. We need to go save him because I like doing his voice,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But they could still give plots. Like, it would be pretty easy to house rule or say, like, all right, player, Shaun, you're playing the shopkeeper. If Caleb makes a skill check or he spends that investigative point, then I'll tell you what the clue is, and then you role play giving it to Caleb's character.
Or you could, and that's the thing you could do with notes. If there's a plot point they have to deliver,
just hand them a note.
Look at your SVU or your regular Law and Order episode. Like, you have a 45-second to a minute and a half conversation that only exists to establish that person had a life before the cop showed up, which is done as quickly as possible, and then deliver a single facet of information, like they were here at this time, they bought this thing, they're related to so and so, and then that scene literally just fucking ends. There's no reason you can't write that down on a post-it and slide it to so and so playing NPC so and so, and have them just that's your talking point. Find some way to work that into the questioning. Otherwise, say whatever you want and just role play it out.
Yeah, exactly. So there are ways to. I think that's definitely the major trend now, is to do more collaborative things. Is not just the less load you put on the GM, the better it is, because instead of 90%, it could just be 60% of the GMs. And you can also see this in actual genre TV shows. For example, Young Justice has that same kind of thing. It's in the second season. We're on that mountain near the small town, Harbor or something like that, or whatever it's called.
I can't recall off the top of my head.
But they're relocated. Their secret fortress is in a small town, is near a small town, and so they all go to the same high school, and they had these small town elements. But the rest of the time, it's an adventure of the week thing where they go out and fight crime or. Well, do Black Ops for Batman. So you can have that. So you can even do different genres. It's not just necessarily
Buffy's basically.
Buffy's very much that.
Yeah, same kind of concept. You very much have, and then in that case they have through lines, and then also just adventures of the week. My teacher's a mantis person. Yeah. Let's forget about that from now on, and now let's work on the vampire guys, for 2 or 3 sessions.
I mean, one thing is we've been talking about small town mystery as in the traditional investigators who are solving crimes or Encyclopedia Browning it or whatever. But it could be more, let's go on Black Ops to fight bad guys. It can be,
and that's sort of my academic.
It could be any kind of procedural.
And that's sort of my academic principle of this. You never see a genre literature that gives up the idea of the image. Yeah. Or metaphor or something, these deeper literary concepts. I would argue at this point, regionalism, local color, as a way to achieve, realism in terms of the 18th century sense and the verisimilitude, is this sort of this through line that's expected in all of literature, this sea change. There's no reason you can't inject that into all sorts of shit.
Shaun, any other genres you'd like to use?
Again, I think we already brought up the British cozy mystery and all that, but I was just going to kind of comment on that, actually. Isn't that part of the appeal? I'm not big into MMOs, but isn't part of the big appeal a persistent world that you can have an effect on?
Oh, yeah.
And so this, in effect, gives the players that kind of access to a tabletop game, as opposed to, you're in a tavern, there's an old man with a map.
Yeah.
It's also, because for one thing, I think one of the reasons why the regionalism or this sort of local color writing is popular, because it's still comprehensible in a short amount of time. If you're trying to do something, unless you're, there's other versions like Les Mis could be Paris.
Yeah, if you're George R.R. Martin, you're doing world building of a different sort.
Yeah, but that's a tall order for most people.
That's a huge order for most people.
And so instead, if you want, especially if you're just running a game, you might all right, instead of having a persistent world that the players can keep track of and I can keep track of, instead of doing an entire 3 continents worth of shit, like, you know, Game of Thrones. I'll just have one small town, and we'll just ignore everything outside of it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, think about it in terms of sustainability. Like, if you're Gygaxian, if you're back in the old days, and you need to build, like, an entire new world that no one's read in, like, the Elric novels or any of the, you know, common reading of your gaming group. Yeah, man, you're burning oil for fucking everything. It's all coal power. You're, like, a shit ton of, like, wasted energy on plot points people don't touch and stuff like that. But, like, the technology of gaming has developed, like, energy. Like, get some solar panels in there. Get, like, turn off your lights when you're not in a room. Like, you know, get some more efficient production methods. And, like, you can get the same effect in terms of, like, everyone had fun and everyone talks about this narrative for years to come in your group off, like, a smaller scenario. And in fact, like, sometimes it'll be a deeper experience, not a less experience. Like, you can be more efficient in it. And like that being derived from the culture market, like it is, like the small town mystery genre clearly is derived from these materialist demands on, we need a fucking story this week. Like, they've got some shit figured out just from, I mean, like, not to be ranting about it, but like the invisible hand went down and graced this narrative to make it more cost productive. And like, you got to meet every fucking week, and you have a job, and you have kids, and you have love members, and you have to, like, write this fucking game. Like,
the show must go on.
Maybe do less with, you know, do more with less, you know, is what I'm saying.
But reusing sets, again, that persistent small setting, you have so much less you have to do. Like, a lot of Northern Exposure was filmed in a small town in Washington State. Yeah. And it was Roslyn's Cafe is actually the Roslyn Cafe, Roslyn, Washington.
Versus like X-Files, which is all in northern Canada, whereas everywhere they go in the entire United States, it looks like fucking darkly lit northern Canada in winter. And like, that harms verisimilitude versus like, we are solving mysteries in Erie, Indiana. Oh shit, it always looks like Erie, Indiana. Weird. Like, that kind of stuff.
It's efficient. So.
Actually, you know, I did study television writing for a while, and that's actually a demand. When you create a TV show, you have to have reusable sets. Like, you can have new sets unique for one episode. You know, like you go out to the circus to solve a crime or whatever, but you can't but to keep costs down, there have to be reusing sets. Even in the X-Files, they had reusable sets like Mulder's office, you know, the director's Skinner's office, the coroner's, you know, the.
Well, I mean, that's as old as the Unities for Shakespeare. He's like, that's why Romeo and Juliet meet on Monday, fuck on Tuesday, and are dead by Thursday. Like, you got to get this shit popping because like you can't show years of time. Like, I mean, so there are some sets, but like the Small Town Mystery. That does create a new demand because, like, again, if you have a persistent world, a persistent town, and then like the players get into a fight at the store, you need to, and they wrecked it or they set it on fire, you need to like, you go by the burned down store and the shopkeeper, you know, ruefully, you know, whisks, dust away on his broom and he looks at you pissed off, you know, or whatever, or is happy because you saved his dog from the fire or whatever. Whatever that reaction is.
You were rude to Jill the postmaster, and so every time you try to mail something, it's going to be
it's like a Telltale game. She will remember that, you know. You know, and there are different examples of that to some degrees. I mean, certainly like JoJo has a huge backstory and like dozens of chapters, and they're very good about reusing characters. Like, I know. I'm just saying
He's gotta run.
They turn a villain of the week into a minor antagonist or ally of the main characters. So you can use the same thing. So especially if the players aren't literal murder hobos, you know, if the players can develop new relationships, friends can become enemies can become friends.
I mean, another thing I really like to narrative is like if these characters show up again week in, week out, like it makes deceit more real.
Yeah.
Like we can't relate to like false flagging an entire government to like gain control of it. Like we're not Russian. We can't identify that kind of shit. But we can relate to like family secrets or betrayed best friends and that kind of shit. You're keeping it on the human level. Yeah. Small town cover-ups or
Cottonwood,
like,
for example.
Weird traditional. Yeah. We can all kind of relate to that sort of like level of corruption and deceit. Even if it goes to murder, we can relate to that sense of like personal betrayal. Like, I met that person every day. We went to school together. I saw them at the grocery store just last week. You know, you're sort of like making a more intense emotional impact than you are with like the vampires control the NSA now, which is great, but it's a very different style of game.
Well, I think part of it is kind of the way I look at it. It's almost like a seasonal thing. You live in the same place for a while. You get used to the cycle of life, how it acts in the spring versus the summer versus the fall.
Shit, you have seasons.
Yeah,
that's another
seasons.
thing that you don't have in like fucking big grand scope epics unless you like go. And then when you do, it's like, oh, we're in the ice level like every fucking video game.
Right.
Oh, it's the lava level like every fucking video game.
But the seasons can be metaphorical. Like even in Stranger Things, it takes place over a short period of time. But as the characters gain more information, they survive certain events, the same places take on new significance. And
they have Halloween, they have weekends, they have like, you know, it feels in a lived-in space.
It lives in the same space, but like what the best part is like you do this foreshadowing too, which is like that's sort of one of the strengths of it is when you can do it well. Like you have the small town, or like you know, for example, in novels like Salem's Lot. Like at the beginning of the book, they talk about this boarded up house that no one lives in and has a bad history, and like the main character sees it and he's like, oh, that's a creepy old house. And then later on, he's like, there's something bad going on in that house. And then at the very end, it's like, oh shit, the vampire lives here. And so like by every time they look at the bad house, you know, they get new information. It takes on a new significance. And so like that's
and also
sort of
like
the goal.
Stranger Things is used as a sense of horror. You have this sort of like idyllic, perpetually fall weather of the specific Northwest setting, and then they go into the Upside Down, and it's like this snow of ash, and like freaky cold is like announces it. It becomes like this sort of fact that you have established a baseline climate and deviated from it. Again, you have a deeper emotional significance than if you're just like in the dungeons of El Taor, and you go through the dark portal of Shealzador, and then on the fiery plains of weird consonant, it doesn't have the impact.
And sometimes it's this new information doesn't always apply to places. Like in Cottonwood, for example, Shaun did a great job because he foreshadowed the dogs consistently, and then at the end we're like, holy shit, those weren't just dogs, you know.
It's almost impossible to get good foreshadowing into like your basic hack and slash D&D campaign in anything that's not like either painfully obvious or needlessly obscure. And you can see in written scenarios that we've done, and you forced me to read in After Hours, both obvious cases where it's like on page 2 it's like, well, that guy's the evil wizard, or on like page 16 there's some fucking Welsh poem with a goddamn like key to the whole mystery in it. And I was like, wait, what the fuck? And like there's no relatable space in there. It's either like, well, he's obviously the bad guy, or what? Because like the whole narrative doesn't lend itself towards that.
Shaun, any thoughts on foreshadowing? Or
okay, I think Caleb covered it pretty well. I mean, like I've read through some of the books where it's like, and there's a red button, make sure to mention the red button. Why the fuck would I mention it? Oh, it blows up the world. Okay.
Well, I mean, like when you're doing Cottonwood, did you specifically think that the dogs were going to be supernatural at the beginning, or was that just kind of like, oh, that's been working really well?
I originally planned to make it just more of a basic motif.
Okay.
And then I gave it a more supernatural significance as I was developing the scenario, as the whole wild hunt thing developed. But originally, some rural areas have problems with packs of wild dogs. That was kind of like a realism thing for me. I'm like, no, but what? That's where like the whole metaphor of wild dogs as just the local people who will tear you to fucking pieces.
But yeah, that helps. That's like again the part of the realism, the local color, and that then you can be and like the one thing is also the wild hunt. Like you can have a theme that it doesn't fully convey to the players even by the end of the game. You can like have this overall like this is the theme of this game is the wild hunt, and then like 2 or 3 layers down are what the players interact with. So like Twin Peaks sounds like that kind of thing.
Yeah, it kind of goes that way, but it was more of a guiding vision by the end of it, and you could have interacted more with that, but it wasn't necessary.
Yeah,
which gave more agency,
because you chose to use the Wild Hunt as the theme, you kept everything consistent with that. So you didn't start adding in like something totally unrelated. If you threw in a Wicker Man thing, like I would be like, wait, what? You know?
Yeah.
And that's another small town mystery. I mean, that's more of a movie, but like the original at least is an excellent kind of small town mystery.
I mean, it's really a verisimilitude tool. No matter how you execute it, like there's a reason Stephen King writes almost exclusively in Maine. If I need you to believe there's a giant fucking bat creature in tunnels beneath this city eating folks, I really need to be able to see that fucking textile plant in aching detail to understand like the significance.
He's kind of the master of this.
Yeah, like I mean, and that's the basic principle of it. Like I will make this fantastic thing that will get you to the table, more stakes, more relatable by giving it this persistent, realistic place.
Yeah, and if you ever see a Wagoneer in Maine, get the fuck out.
And you know, we were talking about like the real world and real historical places, but obviously, I know it shouldn't have to be said, but I'm going to say it anyway. You can set these in other places. Like I could see doing a small town mystery in Eclipse Phase, for example, if you just had an isolated area.
A habitat or
an exoplanet colony.
A fantasy world. Like Terry Pratchett is very good about like not Ring World in general, which makes no sense in the broad spectrum of it. But like I'm going to set it in this city, and the city has like a theme and the very like
or
aesthetic.
Village,
or the village has a very like a theme or an aesthetic that is like consistent across the board.
There was kind of a murder mystery sort of thing. I don't know if you guys watched Outcasts. It was a British. I don't know if it was BBC proper, but it was basically a space colony.
Okay.
There was a whole lot of small town corruption kind of mechanics, and because it was this isolated colony. Actually, holy crap! It fits all the. Yeah, it's got like a deeper history to the planet, and they have to figure out what's really going on to survive, essentially. But Outcasts. Yeah, I think that's what it was.
What was that sci-fi show where it was like? They tried to attach it to a video game, but it was like 7 different alien species living in like the ruins of St. Louis underneath
that's
the
a different
arch.
one. Yeah, that's
they did this enormous galactic world building thing, and they're just like, "Fuck it, it's set in St. Louis." because it's just like more stable. Like it's an easier pull.
I think was that Independent? No, that was Defiance.
Yeah, Defiance.
Yeah,
that was it.
Yeah.
I tried watching that.
It wasn't good, but like the impulse about why they do it does not, it's not a bad impulse if you can pull it off. That's what I should say. You shouldn't be allergic to the impulse of narrowing your scope and localizing your game just because you feel like it's hacky. It can be hacky.
Yeah.
But it can also be like efficient and you can tell a good story that way.
I mean, other examples that could fit in this kind of genre or space, Watership Down, Animal Farm, if you want to do talking animal, fables kind of thing. So let's see here. Basically, 90% of Stephen King's body of literature.
Yeah.
He's branched out recently, but not much.
To questionable success.
There's a lot of sci-fi books dealing with colonies or isolated areas or arc ships, that kind of thing. Basically anything where the major characteristics, it has to be a small, unique place that's isolated, not entirely, but like the idea is that the one idiot clause is that you cannot have them easily calling for help and getting it.
And one of the worst...
They have to solve problems on their own.
At this point, one of the worst tropes that RPGs can experience is the robot from Aqua Teen Hunger Force thousands of years ago. Like, everything is, like, fucking huge. The pauldrons are 18 meters high. The years, add 18 zeros to any number you put on to it. Because it's got to be huge and big and not... And, like, it just lends itself to
the Destiny thing?
Yeah, Destiny.
I was going to point out Warhammer 40K.
It just.
Well, he mentioned pauldron, so that was really.
Well, it just lends itself to fucking parody and don't do that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you could have a very long history if you could figure out some way to reveal it through gameplay. Like that's another thing about the small town mystery is that, like in Gravity Falls, every bit of exposition is earned because they solved a mystery. And it's like the first mystery is like, oh, what's the deal with this book? And then the thing is, oh, I need to figure out where the other books are, and then like, oh, I've got all the books together, I better activate this machine. Oh, I've activated this machine. Oh shit, I found out what the real objective is.
But also every bit of history is relevant.
Linked objectives, and each one reveals a new layer of the history. And the history does not contradict itself, but it puts it in an entirely new light. If you think like the big mystery is, solving who killed Laura Palmer, and then
But imagine Gravity Falls if it was like global, like the Wild Thornberries. Like Gravity Falls meets the Wild Thornberries. We're in a different setting every fucking week. Like you're not going to have like those in last episodes where they achieve resolution. You like see Wendy become like this apocalyptic warrior, and you have
there's a lot of payoffs.
These characters, there's no payoff to the end of it. It's just like, well, the world.
Yeah.
And you can't encompass the world. You can't think of the whole world. You're not going to truly encompass an entire fucking town either.
Yeah.
You're going to fail. You're a single person. So why don't you fail smaller to develop reality rather than fail to figure out the entire galactic cosmos of the last 18 millennia of whatever your fucking 26-part sci-fi volume game you have in your head. Why don't you just it was pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't really think you nailed down the tax system perfectly, but I didn't really care because the narrative was interesting.
Yeah, well,
why is everyone 9 feet tall with pauldrons and so fucking
if they all
grimdark?
went to the same high school, that would be amazing. Warhammer 40K High School,
Primarch High School.
Yeah,
Primarch, there are no jocks.
Yeah.
There are no gearheads. There are only metalheads. There is one clique, and it is how Cannibal Corpse can you be?
If what they're wearing is their standard thing, imagine what their football uniforms actually look like. They would have double stacked pauldrons. I don't know.
I think it'd just be Blood Bowl.
Yeah.
There's holes in the stadium.
So
and
things have to get sexy. So these Space Marines making out in the back of steamy APCs.
But
I would run 40K if it was set in a 40K high school.
But wait, he's from the
that's our new Hillfolk game, I think.
But wait, he's from the Chaos Clique, and he's one of the loyalists.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh, see, there you go. It's a Romeo and Juliet thing,
Yeah, Riverdale with vaguely fascist overtones.
Yeah, and you can still get the incest in, probably.
Yeah. Well, technically, they're all related. So
yeah, exactly.
They're clones.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hopefully, we'll get a lot of positive comments on that. Or very angry ones.
Do it now.
Yeah. You could really do it in any genre that RPGs can do it.
It's going to up the stakes and make it feel more real, whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
If you have this sort of persistent world around it that's manageable in size.
So at some point, I will run a Bubble Gumshoe game that does focus on small town mystery. I have not finally. It just depends on schedules at this point because right now everyone's kind of scattered about because of summer. But and I don't know when I'll post it. But that's something to look forward to. When we come back, we'll have shout outs and an anecdote. So. And we're back, I believe. Yeah, there we are. Just to make sure the bubbles are there. We have quite a few shout-outs, so we'll just get right into it. First off, I want to talk about an RPG I've recently run. I quite enjoyed. I think I mentioned it before in the podcast, but now that I've run it, I can fully endorse it. Belly of the Beast. It was kickstarted, I believe, last year. The premise is that it actually is kind of a small town thing because you live in a small little tribal area by default.
One of the stomachs.
Yeah, one of the stomachs of a continent-sized beast that is swallowing up a planet. But you're the third generation of people who live in this thing. And so it's very much a meat punk game. Meat punk, and you are basically the premise is actually similar to Red Markets in that you go out every week to get scavenged resources. You're like, it ate a city recently. Go get the granary. Go crack open the granary and get as much intact grain as you can. So I've ran it. The system is called the Ethos Engine, and basically you roll pools of d6s to succeed. The target number is based on your skill. If you're really good at something, you need a 3. If you're really shitty, you need a 6. And then there's in between things. But you spin instinct pool in order to add bonuses to your to roll more dice. But these instinct dice are not. This pool is not replenished every scene. You have to do things in order to fulfill your instincts. And there's 5 instincts like loyalty, curiosity, fear, violence, and greed. So you have to do things that fulfill your instincts or help you scavenge more shit in order to keep getting dice so you can keep succeeding at things. So you have to keep, there's sort of like, you need to keep maintaining forward momentum or keep acting on your character's impulses or instincts in order to succeed. So I thought that was...
Playing them spots?
Yeah, exactly. Playing the spots. But they're very basic, generalized ones. They're not very specific. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of justification. Like when I ran a one-shot, Tom, for example, chose loyalty. So whenever he would do something dangerous so that the other player character wasn't at risk, he got dice for it. So it actually worked out pretty well. So I'll have a one-shot recorded, posted sometime in the next month or so. I mean, it is recorded. I will post it sometime in the next month. So something to look forward to. Caleb, there's a TV show that...
So it's old.
Yeah.
And everyone's either seen it or never heard of it before. So there is this show on the BBC called Cadfael, Cadfael.
Yes.
Because it's Welsh. But it is a basically cozy mystery series set in like 1216 during the Great Anarchy, which was a civil war between, I think it was King Stephen and Empress Maud, pretender to the throne. And Cadfael is a Benedictine monk who didn't become a monk until he was in his 40s. And before that, he spent his entire time being a pirate and a crusader. So he's like this monk who's an herbalist, but he's like heavily invested in like science. He knows all about how people actually live versus how they tell the church live. And he's a total badass. Even though he's like in his 60s, like people will put a sword on Cadfael. He's like, bitch, please, knocking the sword out of the hand. Like, and it is just the most entertaining cozy mystery ever because it's very much like CSI during a time where we believe witches are real. Like, he's just like, what if if they sink, like seeing if they sink isn't a good way to tell if they're guilty. Like, it's a...
You're a loose cannon, Cadfael.
Yeah, exactly. And that's every fucking episode. It's so predictable, and I love it.
Nice.
It's utterly predictable, but, like, the setting alone just fucking saves it, and the character saves it, because it's so interesting. And by predictable, I mean this. There's 4 episodes in the first series and 3 in the series after that. So a number of episodes, like it's like at least 13. There are 3 times Cadfael doesn't find a body in the pond because they need to reuse that fucking set. In the whole series, there are 3 dead bodies that are not found in the river.
The other 10 are.
Yeah, the other 10. Well, there's more sometimes there's multiple murders per episode. Yeah. So it's more than 10. But it's utterly predictable, but like utterly delightful. There's these monks that are always like, Cadfael, you're a loose cannon, and he's always like dressing them down. It's fucking great. At one time, they are going to a small town to rescue a saint's bones for relics because basically the monastery needs money, and no one will admit that except Cadfael. And there's a murder in the town, and they think all the monks did it. And it turns out the monks did do it. Like, one of the monks did it, and the monk dies, like, trying to escape arrest. So, spoiler alert, Cadfael is just like, all right, we're going to pretend he ascended to heaven. So he strips him naked, lays out his robes, and covers it with petals of the saint's flower because he's an herbalist. He stuffs his ass in the fucking trunk where they put the relic. The dead body of the murderer. He goes to the village and he's like, just say we took the saint. You can keep the saint, but just like say it's cool. And then all his monk brothers are like, oh, it's a miracle from Saint whatever. He's like, yes, it totally is. And there's like a rotting dead guy in the fucking coffin.
Right. Is this on Netflix?
No, I have the DVDs if you want to borrow, but it's pretty solid. You should watch Cadfael. It's my favorite cozy mystery, just because it's set during an age of medieval crazy superstition.
Nice. Speaking of British TV shows about craziness, this is a little different though, Shaun.
Oh yeah. So I was going to give a shout out. I kind of already did earlier about Outcasts. Go goes back to, it's from 2011. Again, space colony. Yes, they have the weird mystical aliens were here before us thing. It's more important.
Is this on Mars or like some distant planet?
It's like a distant planet, but I think I can't. It's been a while since I watched it. It was on Netflix, but they cycle through things, so obviously I don't think it's on there anymore. And again, it was like I think 7 or 8 episodes, and then they axed it. But basically, they have to figure out what happened to essentially a previous colony and what's going on right now with all their personal petty politics and who's actually running the place, and there's like a attempted coup, that kind of stuff. It kind of fits that same small town mystery aesthetic, but it's kind of a hard sci-fi approach instead of it being like, we've got all sorts of faster than light. Again, they become isolated because they can call back to Earth for stuff, but it's going to take.
It's more like, oh God, are we going to be able to survive?
Yeah. And then what's going on? We're seeing freaky alien shit when we're not supposed to be seeing freaky alien shit on this planet. I thought we established there was no freaky alien shit. And then
I was told there would be no freaky alien shit. I've been misled.
Here's a guy from a previous attempt at the colony we didn't even know happened, but got covered up by the government. He has diamonds. Why the fuck does he have diamonds?
Fair enough.
That kind of shit.
Cool.
So no, it's actually a pretty good watch if you can track it down. Decent, based.
Probably be on Hulu or something like that.
It probably is, or BBC America's. They might have that.
Everyone's streaming these days. It's all the hot rage among all the kids. So
I call it hot rages.
Yeah, hot rages. Yeah, sorry.
That's what the kids love to talk about.
Next up, I'd like to do an actual review of Bestiary 6. I got a review copy from Paizo. This is Pathfinder role-playing game. It's a new compilation of monsters and critters and bad things. Now I've basically burned out on Pathfinder and D20 games in general, except for 13th Age. But Paizo, they actually have great art and great writing for like color. Like the thing is, there's a lot of
Wayne Reynolds. He's their main guy.
That's their main guy. Yeah, I think he did the cover art, but they've got a bunch of artists now. It's not just him doing the art.
Aping Wayne.
Yeah, some of them. This has hundreds of monsters, and some of them range from like big cosmic baddies to little parasitic, things that invade and can make your character sick or whatever. But each of these could be a lot of these are like they're obviously the premise for an adventure based around this weird fucking thing, like, oh, here's a whisperer. He's a weird alien fae. He's like a faceless guy. He transforms the landscape around him into this hellish nightmare thing that can kill you. He's utterly alien. No one understands what he's doing. And so like obviously that's an adventure in of itself. Yeah. So like you could take a lot of these monsters and put them in another game. Like there's like half of these would be perfect for Monster of the Week. Or a Buffy style modern thing. So if your players are sick of
something with less numbers,
so I like it, and it's also just fun to read crazy ass monsters. They have so it's a fun read for
Monster manual is the thing you can expect the GM and the players to buy.
Yeah,
if you're going for splat.
Yeah, there are playable character races if you're into that. Obviously there's a reptile guy, reptile species. So the Tom.
I don't know who it's.
Yeah. There are actually let me see if I can find their names. It's like an E, but there's were insects. So here it is, Intothrope. So like there's literally were mantises, were spiders, and were wasps. So yeah.
I was waiting Tom to burst through your door like the fucking Kool-Aid man.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I mean
I've been summoned.
It's a $45 book. So
I hope you like monsters.
Yeah, if you like monsters, this is good. I mean, obviously, if your Pathfinder group is burned out on stuff or they know that they've memorized the contents, there's some weird fucking shit that's going to throw them for a loop.
Give them a were-whisperer.
Yeah. No, you give them a were-whisperer. You could. That's how templates work. So I'm a weird alien fae that had transformed, and I'm also a giant wasp. So fucking deal with that.
Stage 2, giant wasp.
Yeah.
Fuck you. you.
Was it a fae that got bit by a wasp?
Yeah.
Or a wasp that got bit by a fae?
It's a fae. It's like werewolf rules. Like,
all right.
They even keep the full moon thing for some reason. It's like, in the full moon I was bitten by a spider. I'm Spider-Man. Oh, that means you're a hero. No, we're Spider.
So there's some naturalist in the Pathfinder universe like the population just jumps during a fucking full moon and then it shoots back down of every animal. I can't tell you why.
You know, sometimes an unspeakable...
We got wolves, we got different insects. The whole biome just boosts. Human population drops precipitously.
Sometimes an unspeakable fairy horror loves a wasp nest very, very much. Is all I'm saying.
Just going through here. Look at this thing. It's called an omnipath. Look at that thing. Big old fish guy with mouths and mouths. I heard you like mouths, so there's just a lot of cool stuff in it. So, anyways, Caleb, you probably had something else to talk about.
I did.
Yeah, 8 tracks.
I don't remember what it was. Oh yes. So Spotify crashes my computer a lot when I don't open it in a browser. So I've been looking for other streaming music services, and I kind of like 8 tracks. It's shitty in that they want you to sign up and they want you to like listen to a shit ton of ads, but that's everything.
Unless you pay for it.
Yeah, unless you pay for it. But what I like about 8 tracks is that it's basically all mixtapes put together by real people. So you can it's pretty good for discovering new music. I found a lot of stuff that I didn't know ever existed, historical stuff I didn't know existed, and they've got search terms and tags, so it's a good tag system. You can find stuff you like shoegaze, and it gets really particulate, and
you know what shoegaze is kind of connected to?
Yeah, I do.
I'd just say
your various waves, for instance. You can look for every subset of that and various mixes by people who are so into that shit. They went on a free service and made a individual playlist of it. So I've been listening to a lot of that as I write. So
cool. Have you discovered any new artists?
I haven't found anything life changing, except that there is a lot of shoegaze, psychedelica, lo-fi stuff that I'm really into. That's about the only aspect of new music I keep up with, which is lo-fi, psychedelica kind of rebirth.
I've recently gotten into lo-fi hop, which is very chill. It's related to chill hop. It's very relaxing kind of.
Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of Wand and Tame Impala and stuff like that. But there's a bunch of historical stuff out of San Francisco I didn't know who existed. Yeah. So
cool.
I'm getting really into people who
I've heard of 8 tracks, but I have not tried them out yet.
So it's not bad.
Cool. Shaun.
Other thing I guess I was going to bring up was I've kind of been trying to discover new forms of ideas for games, that kind of thing. So I've been digging through. Trying to kind of get back into certain comic stuff. There's essentially things I missed out on. And then I realized I remembered an old miniseries that really influenced a lot of my view of the whole DC setting. And part of the reason why I kind of didn't like it for the longest time. I hate Superman with a passion, just on principle.
And no one's going to disagree here.
Yeah. Part of the reason is
I'm not a huge fan. I'm not Spencer.
Spencer's not in the room. We're fine.
Yeah, we're fine. So I like good Superman stories, but they are rare.
Yeah,
the ones where he's not Superman. Yeah,
basically
we already established.
So I remember a miniseries that I've always kind of gone back to and been trying to find in print, and I can never find an actual graphic novel. And it turns out the reason I can't find it is because they did reprint it. It was a 4-part miniseries made in 1988 called The Weird. And it got reprinted as part of Comet Man because of, general comic book dickery. And so I ordered it recently. I'm excited. In this story, it's the first, little 8-year-old impressionable Shaun read this and went, oh, the Justice League are assholes. I didn't realize, because you've always got that plot that shows up in various sci-fi, fantasy, whatever, where an otherworldly power comes to save us from a threat we didn't realize existed. Thanks. And the heroes are always colossal jerks about it. It's just a thing.
It is a thing. Yeah.
And it's the first time I've really experienced that. But this was that story being told from the perspective of the otherworldly power. So, from a dimension of pure energy, or macrolats and zerolats, and a bunch of mythology. Macrolats, evil Imperials that eat the zerolats and enslave them. a lone Zerlat finds out about a plot to essentially invade our world and fuck shit up. He escapes, takes over a recently deceased man's body because he's ethically opposed to the idea of possessing somebody who's alive. Has to modify the body because his superpower is he understands energy principles we will not begin to hope to understand for millennia.
He's a huge nerd, got it.
He's an ethical Yithian.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes.
He's a cruelty-free Yithian.
Yes, so he revives the body.
Oh, God, he's a hipster.
Yeah, but
Hipsian.
he gains the guy's memories.
That's my high school ska band, Mr. Yithian.
Oh, there we go.
He gains the guy's memories and starts doing, like, it gets kind of weird, like he decides to try and reconnect with the grieving family.
Yeah.
To kind of, like, somehow connect with that, but he's kind of confused about it. In the meantime, he goes to Justice League for help and lets it accidentally slip like a player character that, oh, by the way, my body's unstable and might explode and take out your planet, but if you let me do this thing first, I'll fuck off and everything will be fine. You might explode! You must die! You know.
That's punchy. That's the best thing.
Yeah, so essentially, issue 2 is one of my favorites because this is the issue where Superman goes full rage mode. The weird can literally just phase through objects and he's fine. Superman goes plowing through buildings to chase him down, at one point busting through an old couple's apartment without a second thought.
Dang it, Superman.
Yeah, so we see Kal-El full rage mode, and I'm just like, oh, that's kind of interesting. So yeah, it goes along those lines, and
I wonder if Zack Snyder read the same comic as a kid, and it's like, that's it. That's everything from now on.
Fuck your house!
Yeah.
Superman!
kind of takes that angle, but this is at a time when Superman was the perpetual Boy Scout at this point.
Yeah.
So it was a
Is 88 still Silver Age?
I think
Is it still like shooting tiny Supermans out of your fingernails?
No, that's 60s.
Yeah,
60s?
no.
70s is like
70s and 80s is where we get to like what's debatably called the Iron Age, where shit starts getting edgy.
Yeah. Okay.
Before we hit the 90s and guys
Everything
have
is
like
edgy.
Yeah, it's all edge, no substance.
I'm sorry, I'm still stuck on the hipster Yipthian. I think I just picture him with a scarf.
What's on the
and
drum
black-
head? Is it like a brain in a jar with like a fake beard hanging off the jar?
It's a Yithian with a scarf and black frame glasses and like a coffee and like a notebook, but it's like a metal cube notebook. And he's like
a metal cube moleskin.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, it's cool. So I was just going to say,
Six-dimensional moleskin.
Yeah.
basically, this is like an early thing for me that like kind of got me closer to.
I want to read it. It
Yeah,
sounds great.
I'll let you borrow it whenever I get it in. It should come in tomorrow, actually, because
Cool.
Man,
Yeah, whenever you finish.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome. So, speaking of things that are reading or have read, I recently read a couple of novellas. I'll just mention them pretty quickly. That they're both excellent reads, and they're novellas, so they're not too long. One is the Murderbot Diaries, Volume 1, All Systems Read. And it's apparently going to be the first of a series, and I can't wait for part 2. Basically, it's a very Eclipse-based kind of setting. Where they're colonizing planets and exploring them, and there's also building basically AIs and podmorphs, meat and robot parts put together. And basically it's from the point of view of this Murderbot, basically a cyborg guy or cyborg body AI in control, but normally they have these limiters that, remove their free will. His is broken. And so he has free will, but he's just working this job guarding scientists on a distant planet as they're surveying it, because all he wants to do is basically watch TV on his downtime. So I was thinking of you, Caleb, if you were a murder body, like, whatever. I want to see part 20 of the Lunar's Diaries,
Yeah.
or Lunardale, sorry.
Yeah, Lunardale.
And basically he's just fine being a slacker murder bot, until basically they find out, oh God, there's another secret colony on the planet and they want to murder us for reasons. And so he's like, God damn it, I have to protect the scientists because they know my secret and I have to, God, they'll just reformat my brain and like, damn it, I have to do things now. And he's very socially awkward as a murder bot.
So it's like
reluctant murder bot.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like edgier Short Circuit.
Yeah, basically, it's a slacker Short Circuit.
There we go.
And he's more self-aware. He's not naive. Okay. He's just like, I don't care.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it's a great read. And then, of course, another novella, Agents of Dreamland, which is a Lovecraftian Cthulhu mythos take on a basically an apocalyptic cult dealing with Amigo, the fungi from Yuggoth, and a G-Man type character who is part of a secret government agency trying to deal with them, and a Yithian who is actually coincidentally enough helping the government for reasons. So it's an excellent interpretation of the Cthulhu mythos by a modern writer. So again, both of them are excellent reads. I highly recommend them. Let's see here, Caleb, you had another comic book to talk about.
Yeah, so I'm trying to power through the last of my Red Markets writing assignments. It's not going great. Limping across the finish line here at the end. So I have forced myself to dive back into the well that is zombie fiction, which is, because I'm not a good marketing or business person, 90% terrible. But I have found amongst there. So Boom Comics, makers of many shitty movie tie-ins, got the rights to Danny Boyle's 28 Days Later franchise. And they did a really shitty, like, Twilight Zone stories within the 28 Days verse comic that I bought and was super disappointed in. But I went to Half Price Books over the last weekend, and I found the 28 Daters Omnibus for like $7, so I bought it on that. And it is enormous, and it is actually quite good. It's from the perspective of the... not the protagonist of 28 Days Later, but the lady that saves the protagonist, the machete lady, who's just like her partner of many months.
The first one he meets after he wakes up.
Yeah, his partner of months is like maybe bit, and she's like, well, and he's like, no, wait a second, and he's just like, nope, and she just like machetes him to death without like a moment. And it's very much along the mindset of like, it's before 28 weeks later, the outbreak's still ongoing. They had their rights to the story, everything after the film, and they rope her in because she's in like a fucking refugee camp in Reykjavik with all the other UK people, but she survived longer than everybody else. And so they're very much like, you know what you're doing. We need you to go after MacGuffin. And she does it. And it's pure taker shit. Like, she's just like, all right, you're going to do what I say. Everyone needs to wear leather. You all need machetes. Like, it's very much like, all right, I'll do it because I need money because I live in a tent city in a frozen tundra. But y'all bitches know that the rules are different out here. And it's very good. It's much better than most of the zombie fiction and comics I read. So I would recommend it. Unlike the so be careful if you're looking at Boom Comics, because they do have the sort of
they have a very variable genre.
Yeah, variable is a lovely way to put it, Ross. The sort of like four tales within the verse is not very good, but like the sort of enormous, I didn't know the series went this long, but this sort of enormous backlog of this following this single character is actually quite good so far. So I would recommend it.
Cool. Not quite a shout out because we usually don't do big things, but I do want to mention that I recently played through and beat Nier Automata. And it's an excellent game. It's not perfect, obviously. It does have fan service. Not
Senpai.
Yeah, well, it's not. It's actually a lot better than most things, but the character designs are kind of fan service.
My skirt is tactical.
It is, yeah. But it's an excellent deconstruction of like video game ludo-narrative design tropes. You play through the same story through multiple characters' perspectives. The gameplay itself changes to accommodate like shifts in the narrative. It's actually not quite a small town narrative, but like it's all focused in one particular city in the post-apocalyptic. Like humans have been gone for hundreds or thousands of years, and there's like basically aliens built a race of robots to wipe out humanity, and humanity built a race of androids to fight the robots. So all that's left are these artificial creations fighting a war that they've long forgotten the meaning to. And so it's actually very existential. It's like, what is the purpose of my life? Especially once you find out the truth that, the human, I don't want to get into it, but like,
I've seen some videos on it.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like it's deeper than it would appear.
Exactly. And like the game, like,
but the videos are just like, the blindfolds they wear are a metaphor.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it looks like bondage gear.
Or like, it's
so no thank you.
just headcanon. It's Lady Gaga fighting far in the future. Like that's actually pretty conservative for her.
With the theme that hell is other robots.
Yeah, hell is other robots.
Hell is other robots.
They actually bring up Sartre, and there's actually a character named Sartre, and you have to find him philosophy books. As a subquest. And it's got an excellent soundtrack too. So it's actually, worth playing through.
I mean, there's worse ways for Japanese designers to be up their own ass. Kojima.
Well, okay, to be fair to Yako Taro, the guy who made Nier, he's like, why'd you make them look like fetish models? He's like, I like girls. I don't like. There's no story. He's not.
Yeah, it wasn't like they breathe through their skin.
Yeah, no, it's like.
I'll give him that much at least.
He's like, I'm kind of a perv.
All right, well, great.
Yeah, at least he's honest about it. So, but anyway, sorry, Caleb, you wanted to talk a little bit about the big movie you saw recently.
So, guys, we're probably going to talk about this in Mix 6 because I'm just astounded as anyone else. Wonder Woman's actually good.
I've been hearing good things about it. I have not seen it yet.
So to be clear, because I don't want to be judged, we were at my parents' house and they wanted to go see a movie and they wanted to go see Wonder Woman. So I did not pay and I went under protest because I've seen things that Zack Snyder has touched and I've seen them wither and die. So I was not expecting anything, and it's actually like I've had to take some time because I'm just like. Was I expecting it to shit itself and die, and then it
low expectations,
and then it just shit itself? Yeah. Was it an expectation thing? But no, it's actually a fairly good superhero movie because that's a genre now where you can judge it as beyond just a film. Yeah. You can judge it as a superhero film.
It's established,
and it's the best parts of Thor, the first Thor, where he's sort of innocently naive about the way humanity works, and you sort of get that consistent defamiliarization joke with Chris Pine. Chris Pine is dashing, but also not playing Captain Kirk. He's not super cocky and dicky all the time. And then it's also the best parts of Captain America. So because she comes onto some Kaiser worshipping crowd assholes and she whips the fuck out of them, just beats the shit out of them. And also, it's really refreshing as a superhero narrative, even though it follows the same basic arc, in that the arc is I want to go do the thing, let me do the thing, and she's restrained from doing the thing by other things, so it's sort of reinforcing the patriarchy. It's never the burden of responsibility or should I be a hero. She wants to go stab Ares. She stabs a guy, spoiler alert, it's not Ares, and then she finds Ares and she goes to stab that guy instead. That's the arc. It's I want to go stab Ares. Stab. Oh shit, I wasn't Ares. Oh, you're Ares? Stab. That's the whole arc of the film. It's not what does it mean to be a hero and should I really do it? My mom's name is Martha. And it's not angsty or bullshitty. It's just no, let's go do the thing. Why won't you let me go do the thing faster? And then they're No Man's Land is well, you can't charge across No Man's Land. It's but Ares is over there, charges across No Man's Land. I fucking love it. So yeah, it's really pretty good. And I don't feel guilty about watching it like I have every Zack Snyder film. I didn't need to take a shower afterwards to watch the jingoist bullshit off of me. It's not a Michael Bay movie.
Right.
It's good. Yeah.
There's no two giant metal balls.
I didn't want to throw up and despair the future of humanity afterwards.
Have you seen it yet, John?
Oh, it's an okay superhero movie. Yeah, good.
I haven't watched any of the new DC movies.
Oh, I envy
at
you.
all. I've avoided them meticulously,
and that's fair. But you should watch Wonder Woman.
I know. Wonder Woman. I was planning on breaking that.
Yeah, and Sarah loved it as well, and she likes normal super movies. But she retweeted a tweet at me that was I understand what dudes feel like now because I've seen Wonder Woman and I want to barehand fight every man I see. And it's the point where she charges across No Man's Land and just goes ape shit in the Trent, just fucking up some German dudes. It is badass. She wrecks some fools. So it's pretty good.
Awesome. So finally,
also there's a love subplot and it doesn't derail anything.
Between Wonder Woman and Chris Pines?
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, you knew this was going to happen,
Yeah.
but it's not like, we fucked, can I be a hero?
Yeah.
It's like, no, he's a pretty good lay. Anyway, off to stab Ares. Like, it's so great. Like, I was just like, woo, go Wonder Woman.
Nice. Awesome. So finally, speaking of fighting, we've started the Unknown Armies campaign. So it is set in Kansas City. It's not quite a small town. But it has some elements, hopefully, that are reoccurring characters and that kind of stuff. So we have 4 player characters, 4 players, me, Bill, Dan, and David. I'm playing a Cinemancer, weirdly enough, if you're familiar with that in Unknown Armies. I get powers through movie tropes. And we had a fight in our first game session. So, Caleb, do you want to set that up?
So, I used to do judo. And I didn't go as far as Greg did, but Greg's really into judo.
Greg Stolze.
Yeah, Greg Stolze. And I love Unknown Armies because of all his systems. That's the system where it proves that he understands how fights actually work more than anything else, because combat is just stupid. Like, not like stupid and like unentertaining. It's just like this yakety sax, blind, like flailing of nonsense. And it's so fucking great as a result of it. So you end up, for reasons I will leave up to the AP, you need the teeth of certain people you're going to invite to a party.
These are bad people, by the way.
Bad people, horrible fascists, and you want to like hold a honeypot party to do horrible, arcane, unnatural things to them for the greater good, because Unknown Armies. So you lure them into a back alley behind a college dive bar and start a fight. So basically, David's playing the face character.
And we're all disguised as Black Bloc members.
Yeah. Except for David, who's in a luchador mask. Because reasons. So David's in the rear of the alley, and they all come in 5 deep. Whereas you come in 3 deep on the back end. So it's like Mook, leader, David, and then it comes like Bill, Dan, and then Ross behind them. So they come up. Ross is a Cinemancer, so he has a power called does it smell like chloroform?
Yeah. I actually used 3 of my spells in that fight. The first one was actually the banana peel gag.
Oh, yeah. So he doesn't want to fight 5 people, so he throws a banana peel after one guy, and he trips on it comically.
Yeah.
Because he can use movie tropes as weapons. Then he chloroforms another dude, and then it becomes like this yakety sax nonsense of violence. So like Bill and Dan are like whiffing and just like hitting the wall with sticks, are hitting other people, and they're like punching ineffectually because they're rolling for shit. Because your average like ability for violence doesn't get above 60% if you're like a badass. And they're like all falling around. Ross is just dropping spells. So the guy that's fighting David like hits on he says he's going to bash the guy's face in, and there's a irony power for Cinemancy. So Ross drops a power that he like steps on a board and smashes it into his face. So as it's on his face, David picks up the board and starts hitting him repeatedly with it as it's hitting him in the face, whereas Dan and Bill are like wailing on these dudes, and Ross is like trying to get a plier into the mouth he knocked. It was just the biggest clusterfuck of like flailing around barroom violence I've ever seen. Like no one looked cool even when they did damage. Like it was just like this random it was awful. Like it was ugly from front to back, and I loved it.
My one regret is that I did not get one of the other player characters to yell, "Is it safe?" as they were pulling teeth out, because I would have gotten a magic charge from it.
Yeah.
So,
and I like had one character standing above everybody else, and I rolled like to him do this flying tackle maneuver to go at Ross behind the like phalanx of dude with sticks, and he crit fails, so he ends up like tripping over everyone and falling down, and then like they're stomping on his face while he's like tangled up in another frat boy's legs, and it was just like the ugliest, most ridiculous ungraceful, flailing nonsense ever. And I'm like, yes, I love that a game system did this, because that's 99% of every fight ever.
Yeah, watch World Star Hip Hop. Shaun, which UA game were you in? Were you in the bakery one or the other one?
I was in the other one.
The other one.
Let's go save Reggie. Which, no matter what, we can't save Reggie.
It was Richie.
Yeah,
It's Richie. I'm sorry. Yeah.
You saved him. He has a girlfriend now.
I don't know if that really was a valid save.
Yeah, what was your favorite, like, without spoiling the overall plot or anything? Because I'll be posting the game soon. What was your single favorite, like, anecdote or element of that game? Or, like, most surprising for you? Because there were many candidates.
We did a lot of things. I'm trying to think like a good specific point. There was the ritual. Is it spoiling it to really say much about the ritual?
How about just listing some of the ingredients of the ritual? Because I think we talked about it at the podcast.
Okay. I won't say why we were doing this, except to say weird science.
Yeah, it was weird science, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that until after we were done.
Yeah, which I believe we included the DVD of Weird Science, a whole bunch of Zoe Deschanel movies.
The original Tomb Raider
Yeah.
on PlayStation.
Had to be running on a cathode ray.
On a CRT hung over.
The Galadriel doll that will be mentioned. Is that after hours posted?
That After Hours has been posted.
Okay, so
I posted. I took
you
a
guys
photo.
were really obsessed with the Galadriel doll for a while there.
It was funny as hell.
It was a good bit in the After Hours.
I think it's called a Dakimakura, the body pillows. You know, when you do one of those.
So yeah, you can think about what that
they made a shrine to male sadness.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that was their starting point, and we just went
A totemic representation of male sadness.
We just sat there and went, "What's the saddest?
Yeah.
I need a girlfriend. Thing we can throw out there." And we just it was way too easy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right, yeah. So that's something I look forward to in the next episode.
Yeah, Unknown Armies plays a little too deep into the actual collective unconscious to be comfortable for anyone, especially the person running it.
Yeah.
I will say that much. But it's wackety swackety do gaming, so
Yeah, we'll have
hopefully you like it.
content warnings on all episodes, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's been RPPR episode 143. Murder, She Wrote My scenario. So
You butchered my title.
I'm sorry. Murder, She Wrote My scenario.
There we go.
There we go.
Brilliant.
So yeah, if you have any experience or questions running small town mystery type games, feel free to post comments here or discuss it on our Facebook group, and of course follow us on our Patreon. So thanks. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.